people screen is your church's database where you store information of all of your people. The people screen has multiple messaging features as well as reports to help you track all the things. And I'm going to show you the core features of the screen, cover initial setup, and really give you some valuable pro tips to help you get the most out of it. So let's go ahead, let's get started. All right, so when you go to the people screen, you log into ChurchTrac, you select the people screen. Now this is your church database. I'm going to go ahead and get that out of the way. This is where you store information on all of your people. And so I can go ahead, let's say I select a person, Emily, and I can see all of Emily's information here. Now, whenever I look at the details, you can see things like Emily's birthday, her address, stuff like that. But as you navigate through these different tabs, I can see notes recorded on Emily and her family. I can see what groups Emily is a part of. And groups are very important because you use them for things like attendance tracking and also knowing people's spiritual gifts. I can see giving history if I have permissions for this. If you want to learn more about permissions, you can check out our other video on user permissions. And I can also order background checks if you're using that integration with Ministry Safe. So that's just showing you real quick, just kind of navigating through there. But I want to go a little deeper here and show you when you need to edit a person, you select the edit button here on the top right corner of your screen, and then you have the ability to edit a person. You can also delete a person or archive them, and we're going to talk more about archive a little later. So I'll go ahead and I can edit Emily's profile. Now, that is just really quick, just kind of showing, just looking at people's profiles and being able to edit them and everything. There's a few other features we're going to cover about this later, but at least you get the gist of how to navigate to a person in the people screen and just the overall use of the database of storing your people's information. Okay, now you need to get everyone's information loaded in the people screen to take full advantage of all the features in ChurchTrac. And in a little bit, we're going to be covering just the easiest ways to add all of your people into the people screen. Okay. All right. Now let's kind of go through some of the other features in the people screen. The next area I want to show is the messaging. So if you select the messaging page, this is where you have the ability to send mass messages to all of your people in your church or specific segments of your people. And so just as I go through here, the email, this is where I can create email newsletters. And what I really love about ChurchTrac is where not only can I create really beautiful newsletters and leverage some of the templates that we've got built in, which I highly encourage, by the way, because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to go ahead, leverage some of these templates and also create your own. And that way you can have a really beautiful email newsletter. But going beyond this, you also have the ability to use the editor and just create like very basic emails. So in the situation where you just want to send out basic text emails to your people, you'll definitely use the editor. But if you want to send out beautiful emails and add buttons and pictures and all those things, use the editor for that. So that's just really quick showing you emailing in ChurchTrac. You also have the ability to send voice messages with the platform as well as sending out mass text messages. And you can do all of that through our enhanced messaging. That's an additional add-on that gives you the ability to send out mass voice and text messages with the software. Now, we also have push notifications built right in as well. And I love this so much because this gives you the ability to send out a message to all of your people that have downloaded your app. And you also have the ability going beyond this. You can leverage form letters. So this is something that a lot of churches still leverage for sending out mail to their people, you know, the old school way with mail, and they need to print out letters and have their people be addressed in all these letters. You can do that. And we also have a MailChimp export. If your church is using MailChimp and you still want to use MailChimp, though I would argue that for most churches, our built-in email tool replaces most of the features that MailChimp offers for churches. So that's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's messaging in the people screen. And again, to learn more about messaging, you can check out our other video and other user guide articles that go deeper into each specific area, whether you want to send out emails or send out mass text to your people, we've got you covered with that. Now, moving right along, let's go ahead and navigate to reports in the people screen. Now, I'm not going to spend much time going through all the reports because mainly there are a lot of reports. I mean, we've got this general report where it just has a report of all of our individuals, but we have other types of group reports where you can generate these very quickly. So if I wanted a report just of people on my worship team, a report of people that are in a specific small group, things like that, you can generate all that. And we also have attendance reports, mailing labels, birthday reports. This is a really popular one. And then probably one of the most popular reports is the member directory. We have a few different options here, everything from a simple family directory, or you can use our picture directory. And one thing that's really neat, I do want to point out, is that most of the reports in ChurchTrac, so if I just navigate to one of them here, you can see this export to CSV button. That's really great because if you're like me, I like to use Excel for a lot of things and I like to customize things. This is really nice for those of you who want to take it to that next level in your reporting, because you can export that to a CSV file, and it went ahead and downloaded that report. And so that way I can open that up in my favorite spreadsheet viewing program like Excel. So that's just exporting. Probably another report that's worth noting here is this. If I scroll down here in our general reports, we have the contribution statement. And so I can send out a mass email, or I can print out those reports, but that's actually available on the giving screen as well if you're wanting to generate that one. But it's good just pointing that out for those of you who want to email your contribution statements to your people. It's right there. Okay, now those are some of the reports. Again, I encourage you, just go ahead and play around with the software and see some of these other reports for yourself. And also, just before I go away from reports, I do want to point out one last thing. I know, one more thing. If you don't see a report in ChurchTrac that does specifically what you want, go ahead, create a custom report, and there you can actually specify all the different fields you want for this report, and you can generate that report for your needs, and also export that report if you need to do that as well. Okay, so that is reports in ChurchTrac. Now I'm going to navigate to this other section here. If you select setup in ChurchTrac, you're given a few different options. And I want to go through these real fast just because these are super important because they tie right back to the people screen and using it not only for the people screen, but all of the software, because all of this is intertwined to the people screen. Groups in ChurchTrac. Groups are collections of people organized around a common purpose. You can create a group for just about anything. So for example, I've got like my worship team here, but maybe I want to create a group for my worship attendance tracking, or maybe I want to create a group for maybe people that are in a particular discipleship journey. I mean, there's so many different options. Probably one of the most common is creating groups for your different discipleship groups or small groups. And so I can actually just search and there's discipleship groups, and I've got these other subgroups under this. You're going to use groups for a lot of things in ChurchTrac. Everything from tracking attendance on your people to scheduling volunteers, and also just knowing how people are plugged into your church, their spiritual gifts. So go ahead, spend some time getting familiar with groups and creating your groups and assigning people to those groups, whether that's adding them in one at a time or leveraging our bulk edit, which I'm going to cover a little later because that's a really great feature. Okay, so now that we've covered groups, let's talk about Smart List, because this is a really great feature as well that is kind of similar but is a little different. So Smart List, what these are a list of names that match the criteria that you define. And I'm going to give you the most basic of basic examples of a Smart List, where our member status equals member and the active status equals yes. And so if a person matches those specific criterias, well, they are going to show up on the Smart List. And so I can actually just select show matching names, and then it takes me right back to the people screen, and it's showing 198 names now instead of all of the names in my database. And you can actually select here which Smart List of people you'd like to see, or you can even select kind of call back to groups. You can see everyone in a specific group as well. But let's go back to Smart List, because this is such a powerful feature. And I think once you see the power of what you can do with it, you're going to start creating a bunch of Smart Lists for yourself. My favorite feature of this is the fact that these aren't just static lists of your people, but they really hone in on whether or not a person is actually meeting the criteria. So let me give you another example. Let's say I want a list of all of our people who have opted in to receive text messages from our church. Well, I've got this smart list here that I've created called SMS opt-in, and they have to have the opt-in status yes in order to match that. So as long as they have opted in, they're going to show up on this list. And you can take this to another level. For example, like students, this is an example in which I can say, hey, a person has to either be in my middle school age category or my high school age category. And if they're in one of those, if they match any of the criteria, then they'll show up on that list. So this is definitely a thing you want to get familiar with, is having your people either match all the criteria to be in that list or matching any of the criteria, because that's a really important part of it. But yeah, use Smart List for being able to have a group of people for sending targeted messages, generating reports. There's a lot of use cases in which you want to leverage a Smart List in ChurchTrac. So go ahead, get those wheels turning, start thinking about it. Okay, now kind of to finish things up, we talked about groups, we talked about Smart List. The other thing I want to talk about is user-defined fields from this setup here. And user-defined fields, they are similar in a way to groups, but they're a little different. I always say that user-defined fields, they're more for storing information, whereas groups are more for being able to kind of like label your people in a way. And so user-defined fields in ChurchTrac, your church is storing so much information on your people. And so you need to think through, what is the type of information that you're wanting to store on your people? And so, for example, I've got like, are they a newsletter recipient? If your church is recording something like maybe when someone was baptized or maybe when they became a member, you can create all these user-defined fields, not only individual fields, but you can create family fields as well. So if you want to record things like wedding anniversary, stuff like that. And one thing that's really handy as you create these user-defined fields is you can also set permissions when you're creating them too. So this is just giving you an example. Just when you create a field, you name it, and then you select what type of field it is. And then once you've created your field, I can select a field and see that, okay, membership date. I can specify the different people who can see that field. I can have that field displayed in Church Connect or not displayed. I can also have it show up when you're adding a new name to your database, which we're going to talk about adding names in a second. Don't you worry. So yeah, user-defined fields, you're going to be using them in your church, and every church has its own specific type of user-defined fields that it's going to be adding. And so just go ahead, get familiar with them. It's definitely a vital part of setting things up. Another thing just kind of worth pointing out that we didn't spend much time on, but whenever you're recording notes on people in your database, you can actually set different note types in ChurchTrac and have people being able to either view those notes or not view those notes and have those different permissions set for that. And so that's definitely something, if you want to have like counseling notes or things that only pastors can be able to see, you can do that here by having those different note types. So that's just worth pointing out there. Okay. So that's kind of just the overview of just kind of the areas of the people screen. We covered just the basic aspect of creating your database and all that good stuff, and covered messaging. Now I want to go a little deeper, and I want to talk about adding names to your church database, because this is so key. So back to the people screen, there are a few different ways you can add names into your church's database. The first way is by simply just adding a name to the database. And so I can just select add a name. If I haven't selected a person yet, this option will be here. You can also select the actions button, by the way, which gives you a lot of different options in ChurchTrac, but you can select add name family right here, and then go ahead, start that process of adding your people into your church's database. And so you want to add a family in at a time when you're using this method. And so for example, I'm just going to add a person here, and I'm going to say this person's name is Matt, and Matt's last name is Williamson. And then I can add another family member, and I can add Matt's spouse. And so I can say Matt's spouse, Carrie Williamson, and then I can add another person, and I can say, hey, I want to add their child, their daughter. And so I can say Marissa. And there you go. And then as you're adding people into your database, you have the ability to add things like their member status, stuff like that, and also their birthday. So get familiar with this and go ahead, start adding some names to kind of just test this out and get used to it, because you can always delete names and archive names. And so don't worry necessarily about, as you add people, if you're adding in these test people, it's a good way to get familiar with the system. I always say add yourself first and your family members, just because you're going to want to have yourself in your database anyway. So why not? So that's the first way of adding people into ChurchTrac. Other ways you can add people is by simply reaching out to our support team and having us import your people for you. And there's a few ways we do that, but it all starts with creating a support ticket with our team. So click that help button and then just go straight to asking our team a question. And just let us know, hey, I want to do an import, and we actually have an option for that. I need to import some data in ChurchTrac, so I'll select that option. And then just go ahead and give us the information. Now, you can either provide our team with an Excel sheet or a spreadsheet that has all of your people's data, or if you're coming from another church software that's in the cloud like ChurchTrac, we may be able to log in to that other account for you and extract that information, put it in a ChurchTrac. And what's really great is we don't charge for this, even on your trial. So if you're on your trial even, reach out to our support team if you'd like us to import data. I always recommend doing a data import just because it'll save you hours of your life if you've got a big database. Now, another really great feature we have, and this is kind of the last way I'll talk about adding names, this is our Add My Family feature. And you select that Actions button on the people screen and you select Add My Family. This is super cool, y'all. I've worked with so many pastors that have leveraged this in their church, where you just simply provide your people a QR code, or you can actually have a link on your website or wherever you'd like to put that link. And your people, when they select that link or go to that QR code, it takes them to a portal in which they can put in their information, and then you can choose to add that information into your church database. And what's so great about this is you can go from having nobody in your database to having a completely stacked database in just a few minutes. I've seen so many pastors do this on a Sunday morning from the pulpit, and they'll do this, and then that first Sunday they've got a lot of people added to their database, and then they do it again the next Sunday to get even more people. And so in a month's time, you could have almost everybody in your database simply by just using Add My Family. But what's really great too is when people scan that QR code, if they're already in your database, they can actually add their information and everything, and they'll have the ability to update their information too. So really great feature. Now I want to give you a little pro tip here, just because I think this is so important, and this is something that's going to save your church money in the long run. Archive names. So in ChurchTrac, you're billed on the number of names you're adding to your church database. And one of the cool features is that you don't get charged for names you archive. So if you have people that you want to store all their information, but maybe they've since moved away, they've gone to another church, maybe they've passed away, whatever it may be, you can actually select a person and you can archive that person. And so it retains all of their information, but they just are no longer going to show up on your people screen. But at any time, all you have to do is unarchive that person if you need to go ahead and pull that person back up and add them back into your database. So it's a really great feature. You don't get charged for archive names. It's very common for me to see churches that have more archived names than not archived names. So yeah, great feature. Okay. Now, as you get started with the people screen, here are some tips that I really want to just kind of leave you with, since I already gave you that kind of pro tip. These are just some things I think are going to make your life a lot easier. So let's go ahead, let's cover them. First, edit your member statuses and your age category in your setup process. So what I mean by that is you actually can select any person in the database. Doesn't matter who you select, because when you go to select this edit button and you go to edit a profile, you have the ability, as I scroll down just a hair, see this little cogwheel here? Whenever I select edit list, this is where I can edit the member statuses. And every church is so unique and different. Now, your church may have member and guest and child, donor, attendee, but maybe you want to add a different status, or maybe you want to change attendee to like a regular, whatever you want to call them. You can edit these at any time. You can actually also move these up the ladder of, the importance too, in the order of the list as you go to select them. But yeah, that's how you update the member status and change your change them, create your own. But then you can also, as I scroll through this list, you also have this cogwheel for age category. This is super key. Go ahead, edit your age categories, and every church is different. And so some churches may have like more or less age categories than what I've got displayed here. But go ahead, edit your age categories. All you have to do is just change the numbers here. So maybe if your middle school is actually 12 to 14, and then maybe your preteen ministry is 8 to 11, 9 to 11, however you want to word it there. So that's a really great feature. Do that because that way you can leverage other features later that I'm about to show you to be able to move your people around, promote people when it's time to promote people to different classes and things, especially kids, as they grow. So yeah, great feature. Okay, last feature or more of a tip that I want to give you, and that is bulk edit. Bulk edit. You ready for this? So this is a feature that is very, very helpful when you're working with a database and you're trying to apply things to a lot of people. This is your best friend. So let me give you an example. Let's say I've got a bunch of people, and you can actually select a bunch of people here in ChurchTrac. So let's say I have these people I've selected, and I want to add them to a specific group, or I want to assign a particular field to them. I can select the actions button, and then I can go to our bulk edit feature at the bottom here. So bulk edit these check names. When I select that, that then gives me the ability to go ahead and update a field value. So if there's a particular field I wanted to update, maybe the member status to a certain member status, I could do that. If I wanted to add people to a certain group, I can do that. It's just such a great feature, and I definitely think it's one of those things that if you use it, you start using it, you'll realize you can use it for a lot of other things you didn't even think about. And then before you know it, instead of spending 20, 30 minutes to manage your database on a certain task, you're doing it in 2 minutes. So yeah, bulk edit, it's your best friend. You're going to love it. Okay. That is getting started with the people screen. There are obviously a lot of important features that I only briefly discussed in this video. So I encourage you, visit churchtrac.com/support to view our entire user guide if you need to go deeper into those features. And if you have questions, send us a support ticket. See you in the next video.